Blog Talk Radio.
Transition, the process of change from one condition to another.
We are now at a new crossroads where change is evident once again.
What does not serve us must transform us anew.
Returning to our original state of oneness and true nature of that which created who we truly are.
Confusion was the way of the past. Enlightenment is the way of the now and future. Shedding away the layers of deceit.
We now bring you the transformation of the two who started as one. Our fearless planet never stands still.
Earth has been in a process of transition, not exactly remarkable, ongoing reality.
Welcome to Transition Radio.
My name is Mark Angelo Cummings, your host.
And I am Lena Ariel Lopez, your hostess.
We are broadcasting live from the beautiful land of enchantment, Silver City, New Mexico.
We wanted to take a moment to thank our sponsors, the Pressform Store. They have everything you can imagine to enhance your feminizing needs.
As well as Spunk Lube, which is an award-winning personal lubricant that is glycerin-free, non-staining, 100% sex toy safe with all materials, and it is fun to use, and we know that. Lots of fun.
Visit their website at spunklube.com and to check out their amazing line of products.
If you use the code TR, and I know every penny counts, you will receive a 10% discount.
If you enjoy our show, please tell your friends and neighbors. Share our website and donate if you can.
All right, well, today's Wednesday, and it is health and wellness, or health and nutrition, or health and fitness, whatever, anything revolving around health.
Exactly.
What better health than to feel aligned and complete? But our world seems to think that sex and gender are black and white. Sex can be much more complicated than it seems for most. According to the simple scenario, the presence of or absence of Y chromosome is what counts. With it, if you are male, and without it, if you are female. But doctors have long known that some people straddle the boundaries. Their sex hormones say one thing, but their gonads, ovaries, or testes, or sexual anatomy say another.
Parents of children with these kinds of conditions, known as intersex conditions, or differences or disorders of sex development, DSDs for short, often face difficult decisions about whether to bring up their child as a boy or a girl. Some researchers now say that as many as 1 person in 100 has some form of DSD.
When genetics is taken into consideration, the boundaries between the sexes become even blurrier. Scientists have identified many of the genes involved in the many forms of DSD and have uncovered variation in these genes that have subtle effects on a person's anatomical or physiological sex. What's more, new technologies in DNA sequencing and cell biology are revealing that almost everyone is, to varying degrees, a patchwork of genetically distinct cells, some with a sex that might not match that of the rest of their body.
Some studies even suggest that the sex of each cell drives its behavior through a complicated network of molecular interactions. I think there's much greater diversity within male or female, and there is certainly an area of overlap where some people can't easily define themselves within the binary structure, says John Ackerman, who studies sex development and endocrinology at University College London's Institute of Child Health.
These discoveries do not sit well in a world in which sex is still defined in binary terms. Few legal systems allow for any ambiguity of biological sex, and a person's legal rights and social status can be heavily influenced by whether their birth certificate says male or female.
The start of sex, that the two sexes are physically different, is obvious, but at the start of life, it is not. 5 weeks into development, a human embryo has the potential to form both male and female anatomy. Next to the developing kidneys, two bulges known as the gonadal ridges emerge alongside two pairs of ducts, one of which can form the uterus and fallopian tubes, and the other the male internal genital plumbing.
The epididymis, vas deferentiitis, and seminal vesicles at 6 weeks, the gonad switches on the developmental pathway to become an ovary or a testes. If a testis develops, it secretes testosterone, which supports the development of the male duct. It also makes other hormones that force the presumptive uterus and fallopian tubes to shrink away. If the gonads become an ovary, it makes estrogen, and the lack of testosterone causes the male plumbing to wither.
The sex hormones also dictate the development of the external genitalia, and they come into play once more at puberty, triggering the development of secondary sexual characteristics such as breasts or facial hair. Changes to any of these processes can have dramatic effects on an individual's sex. Gene mutations affecting gonad development can result in a person with XY chromosomes developing typically female characteristics, whereas alterations in hormone signaling can cause XX individuals to develop along male lines.
For many years, scientists believed that female development was the default program, and that male development was actively switched on by the presence of a particular gene on the Y chromosome. Well, in 1990, researchers made headlines when they uncovered the identity of this gene, which they called SRY. Just by itself, this gene can switch the gonad from ovarian to testicular development.
For example, XX individuals who carry a fragment of the Y chromosome that contains SRY develop as males. So if the law requires that a person is male or female, should that sex be assigned by anatomy, hormones, cells, or chromosomes? And what should be done if they clash?
Our feeling is that since there is not one biological perimeter that takes over every other perimeter, at the end of the day, gender identity seems to be the most reasonable perimeter. In other words, if you want to know whether someone is male or female, it may be best just to ask them. What a concept. Anyway, transgender individuals in search of their alignment place their health at risk, taking in deadly combination of drugs. How much is too much, and all for what?
Well, the next article we are talking about is going to talk about estradiol, testosterone, and just how these things work in the body. And specifically, we're going to talk about estradiol and T blockers. Compilation of 16 studies. During HRT, estradiol lowers testosterone production in MTF women by itself and without any blockers. The fact is that estradiol by itself acts as a T blocker, and thus would work in many trans women's transitions by itself, especially if they do not have super high T levels at the outset of transition. For more information on this topic, see the Gender Research Group at facebook.com/groups/gender research.
And I'll be putting the link. It's actually on the Blog Talk page, and I will also be putting on the YouTube video link. We encourage you to read through this and consider it, especially when we realize how the medical profession, even in this century, persists in blindly and routinely prescribing spirolactone or any other anti-androgens to speed up suppression of testosterone production in those gender dysphoria persons who wish to transition. What it means, if you agree with the clear-cut finding of all these studies, is that a large proportion of HRT transition regimens conducted through physician offices in the world may not really require the use of T blockers to get their results.
Now, I did hear, like in the past, like back in the 80s, they did a study with Premarin as like the main estrogen that they were going to be using on these test subjects. And basically they ran into an issue where these test subjects were dying. So instead of decreasing estrogen levels, they added spironolactone to these things in order to curb the death rates. This no doubt depends on individual circumstances, but it is something that must be considered by each person, perhaps being more of an issue if their initial testosterone levels are very high, and that might also be concurrent with age, with older TG women outset already having lower levels. But it also means that when a T blocker is used for a few months at the start of HRT, it might not be necessary afterwards as long as the estradiol levels have already risen and are maintained in the area of a genetic woman's regular normal range of reference. That alone should keep the T levels from ever rising.
We have posted dozens of reports by TG women who have transitioned and lowered their T with only estradiol on this particular gender research group. These reports made much sense to us because they were quite consistent with what has been discovered about aromatase enzymes and its role in the brain in recent years. But here is the clear-cut research of more than 20 years of further study of estradiol as a natural, important T blocker in biological male bodies that has long been ignored, and all the more reasons to avoid undertaking the many risks of poisoning both the body and the brain with blockers such as spirolactone, when the same results could be obtained over a somewhat longer time period with only estradiol.
These studies show precisely this. If you take estradiol by itself without any blockers, it will reduce your T production. Estrogen-positive feedback on LH secretion in transsexuality is another study that was done. In this early study, way back in 1984, they find an interesting difference between genetic women and trans women. This was the beginning of the story. Note, it states positive feedback, quote unquote, in the title, because the researchers were more interested in the genetic women in whom the estradiol did produce positive feedback and were only using male to female women as controls.
And lo and behold, they found just the opposite. Negative feedback on LH secretion in transsexuals. In genetically born women, the influx of new estradiol generates a positive feedback loop within the brain, the hypothalamic pituitary area, and it increased estradiol production, but in trans women, the same estradiol creates negative feedback and lowering, that's right, you heard correctly, lowering of T production.
As the researchers state, quote, in the MTF transsexuals, testosterone levels decrease sharply and progressively during estrogen treatment, along with a fall in LH and FSH levels, unquote. The further research that explains this phenomenon has to do with aromatase production and aromatase action on testosterone in the brain to convert the testosterone to estrogen in the hypothalamic and other areas of the natal male brain, first affecting the GnRH output of the hypothalamus and then lowering the LH output of the pituitary that triggers the testicles to produce testosterone.
When estradiol is directly introduced into the MTF, male to female natal male's body during transition, it passes the blood-brain barriers and it is indistinguishable by the hypothalamic pituitary pathway from the estrogen, which is always and normally produced there by means of aromatase, although the researchers did not know this explanation back in 1984.
You can click on the link here on the show page of our show to read more about this study.
Now, it's really funny because, as I've always said, the blind is leading the blind on many of our protocol. There's very little research that has been done, and to think that all of a sudden a drug that's for heart conditions that has created a lot of controversy and a lot of side effects that was removed from this use are now being given to transgender women.
Yeah, well, Spiro has been a drug that has had a long history. It was developed back in 1959, and it lost its way with the medical community. In fact, it was something that produced way too many side effects. So they found different medicines that could replace the use of Spiro in cardiac patients in which it was being used as, because the actuality is that Spiro is not even an androgen blocker. It's not even regulated as such a thing. It is what? It's more of a potassium
sparing.
Yeah, some kind of it's a diuretic. It's a potassium, inclusionary drug.
It's considered a steroid. Actually, bodybuilders use it during the time that they are
crazy. That's what you
cutting up for a competition. And it creates all sorts of mental problems in transgender females, which they're not even aware of. I mean, the excitation, anxiety, all sorts of different things brings back more anger. And a lot of times there's what we call diminishing return. Instead of decreasing your testosterone level, it enhances it.
Well, it did for me, because I took 200 milligrams of testosterone last year.
Spirolactone.
Of spirolactone last year every day. And my testosterone levels were off the chart.
Yeah.
Back in November when I went back for blood work. And my only guess is that Spiro actually worked against me.
Exactly.
And did not help. You know, but the thing about Spiro is that these doctors, they dose you with these things that they think are the standard. And whose standard is it?
They have no standards. It's the blind leading the blind. These are like the majority of medication that people are on for whatever reason is not properly tested. These pharmaceutical companies are not looking out for your best interests, and that's what people need to learn and realize. They're playing Russian roulette. I
mean, Spiro, in one study, I heard one person talking about it, a longtime MTF, who is absolutely against people taking Spiro, is that it shuts down the ability to cope, like a coping mechanism in the brain.
Exactly.
So that, it's really, really strange things that goes on. These drugs just really do a number on
it stopped the production of cortisol, which is something that the body requires for a stress situation.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why we see a lot of MTFs that have very little coping skills. They get all angry. You see it in groups.
Right.
Constantly bickering, constantly arguing. And, it's like you're on medication and hormones that could lead you to become a serial killer eventually if you continue. And trust me, I mean, call me whatever you want to call me, but I have seen the wrath.
Yeah.
And I will not mention names, but I have seen the wrath. Yet it's everybody else's fault, never theirs, and it's crazy. It's like, please take care of your health. I know you want to feel aligned, but at all cost,
to sacrifice your health, it's not worth it.
It is definitely not worth it, and that's all that we're trying to say here. Just be very mindful. Listen to your body.
I think the best advice that I could give somebody is to minimize the amount and quantity of hormones or drugs that you put into your body. Whether you are transsexual, whether you are a regular, normal, straight person, with no gender identity issues at all, stay away from drugs.
Yeah, basically. The natural approach is the best approach. I know that it is difficult to transition naturally, although there are people that do so. But really think about it. How much change can you actually have? I mean, we've known individuals who've had FFS, who've done everything, and they still get surd.
Right. And the fact is that some of these things are so unproven. Like they talk about the advantages of taking progesterone. And the fact is that progesterone doesn't develop inside or react in the body the same as it would a regular genetic woman.
Exactly.
So if you're putting progesterone into the body and it says that it promotes roundness in breasts, okay, but what does it do to the rest of you?
Exactly.
What are the unknown things that happen? So I think the best advice is to stay off as much as you can and take what you need to take.
And realize that it's only been maybe, 50 years or less than we've had the pleasure to be able to do all these changes to our bodies. Transgender people have been around since ancient history, and it was all about the spiritual journey, about expressing yourself. It's nothing to do with all sorts of procedures or even lying. And we just read something right now about a woman whose husband found out that she was transgender, and
after like 30 years or something
60,
crazy,
some crazy amount of years, he found out through somebody, and
a family member of the trans woman who basically had a sex change operation in Indonesia and married this guy. She was 27, he was 44, and now at 60, this guy finds out just inadvertently through the slip up of a family friend, and this guy thought. And he was wondering why she was using lube and that kind of thing, as far as like
to lubricate,
because why is that necessary?
Because you cannot lubricate unless you have the glands there, and you were born genetically a female to have those glands. So as much as they try to create a vagina, it does not lubricate, and you have to lubricate it. And
so it's like a dead body part almost.
Yes.
So basically, this trans woman lied.
Yeah.
You know, I just think that it's really sad, you know, when your fiance wants to marry you and you can't be completely honestly truthful about who you are, and for your entire marriage you keep it a secret.
And trust me, they will find out, because between the sky and the earth, there's nothing you can hide, and he found out, and he divorced her. And you know what? And then they wonder why, you know, we're victims and we're getting harassed and we're getting killed and whatever else. Is because people look at us as deceivers.
Right.
The truth is the truth, and you have to tell the person that you're going to spend the rest of your life with and you're going to marry.
I'm trans.
Yeah.
To you.
Yeah. Okay. You what?
Yeah.
Right?
I'm trans.
Yeah. And it's crazy, but anyway, you know, we have to really have some sort of groundness about us, people. I mean, we are transgender. We can't risk our lives to try to be something that we remotely will never be. And hate me if you want, you know, truth is truth. And one day, those of you who are dead asleep to the truth or in denial will find out that there's nothing that we can do to actually change that.
Right.
And the world will always see us as who we are.
It's really just a matter of coming to accepting who you are, you know, I mean, and that's just, you know, how it is, you know. So there's this article about, I've heard about it in the past, you know, about finger length and your sexuality and all that. Well, this article goes in a little bit more in depth. It says finger length helps predict test exam results, homosexuality, cancer, musical ability, and aggressive personality. Study shows your finger length can predict how you will do on various tests in school. They can also tell if you are likely to be more homosexual or straight, if you will likely get certain cancers, be a musician, writer, or scientist, or if you will have an aggressive or passive personality. The two fingers that are important are the index finger, the one you use to point to something, and the ring finger.
In a study to be published in the British Journal of Psychology, scientists compared the finger length of 75 children with their standardized assessment test, the SAT scores. They found a clear link between a child's performance in numeracy and literacy tests and the relative length of their index, pointing, and ring fingers. Scientists believe that the link is caused by different levels of the hormones testosterone and estrogen in the womb. In that effect, they have on both brain development and finger length. Testosterone has been argued to promote development of the areas of the brain which are often associated with spatial and mathematical skills, said Dr. Brosnan, head of the Department of Psychology at the University of Bath, who led the study.
Estrogen is thought to do the same in the areas of the brain which are often associated with verbal ability. Interestingly, these hormones are also thought have a say in the relative lengths of our index and ring fingers. We can use measurements of these fingers as a way of gauging the relative exposure to these two hormones in the womb, and as we have shown through this study, we can also use them to predict ability in the key areas of numeracy and literacy.
So interesting. You know, the size of our finger lets us know if we are going to be straight, gay, smart, dumb, creative, in touch with music. I think there's also something about the size of the toes.
Yeah, I think so. Like toes. But how about this? I mean, baby's born, baby singers, you see them, and you go, oh no, he's going to be this.
Yes,
or that.
yeah, exactly.
You know,
They're going to be
great. He's
wow.
going to be great, you know.
But, you know, we should celebrate each other's differences. We should not have to sit there and judge a person by whom they decide to go to bed with, how feminine they decide to act or how masculine they decide to act. We shouldn't have to sit there and want to place everybody in a box. Well, I want to be real masculine, so I'm going to become a male, and I'm going to transition, damn it, or vice versa. I mean, I can understand that we have more inclination to be feminine, or we have more of an incline to be more masculine, that we feel more in touch with our feminine or masculine side, but this doesn't necessarily make us one gender or the other, or that we have to be so boxed in. People should be able to be who they are, express themselves how they feel they should be, and everyone should be celebrating our differences.
I like the story, you know, because it talks about those fingers and stuff, and in the graph, I saw that yours was actually that of a
homosexual
female, and also a heterosexual
Yeah,
man.
if a man has the fingers the way I do, he would be considered a heterosexual man. And if a female has the fingers the way mine are, my ring finger is larger than my index finger.
Right.
That would mean that I would be
and mine are equal, so that makes me what?
A heterosexual female.
Oh, okay.
There you go. So we're good to go. Oh. Everything is all great. But, you know, today we were watching, actually you were watching a series of different videos because we're doing the healthy lifestyle, back to the raw vegan lifestyle. And we saw something about fat shaming.
Yeah, it was a video that I was reading about, you know, how these fat, you know, people basically are wanting their rights. You know, it's like everybody wants their rights these days, and to be acknowledged in a social setting to, you know, I mean, it's like he was talking about the fact that cigarette smokers are shamed because every time they have to pick up a pack of cigarettes, it shows them what it can do to their body.
Right.
They're shamed by the fact that when they go to a restaurant, they can't go sit around and smoke their cigarettes like they used to.
Or they're taxed heavily.
They're taxed heavily for their habit. So why is it that we have to pay for, you know, basically people that are overweight and obese for their bad habits?
Exactly.
You know,
and it reminded me when I was hearing all these advocates fat shaming of the new advocate wave of transgender individuals pushing our ways on everybody else's agenda. And how dare you not accept me for being the woman that I was born?
You need to accept me because this is who I am and all that. But, you know, fat shaming, you know, it touches a larger percentage of the population in the world, and basically it's causing so much problems in the health community and stuff, and health insurance plans rising and the costs and everything, and it's way too much. It's a burden on society.
And people need to take responsibility for what they're putting inside their mouth. And I know from the time we're little, I was looking through this cafeteria foods of different parts of the world, and the United States of America's typical lunch is McNuggets, chicken McNuggets, mashed potato, green peas, chocolate chip cookie, and fruit that came from a can.
With high fructose corn syrup.
Exactly, which creates more hunger and makes you a food addict, and that's what they want. So that way the pharmaceutical company could give you the drugs.
But then I saw Brazil.
Brazil's a beautiful lunch. You guys will be able to see the what we're talking about. It's on the actual Blog Talk sliding there of our picture thingy, and I will also put it on YouTube so you can see what we're talking about. Shame on you, America. You know, it's like we are the laughing stock of the world. I truly believe so.
It's sad because, I mean, we think that we've done so much to influence the world in a positive way, but we've done so much to influence it in a negative way.
Yeah, by putting McDonald's all over the world.
Yeah.
You know, let's all get sick and die, or barely stay alive, because the pharmaceutical companies will keep you barely alive and poison you.
Well, I mean, so we're talking about, you know, the fact that these companies, they know what they're doing.
Oh, yeah.
In doing this. You know, they want to destroy the health of the American citizen so that they can then allow for the medical establishment and these pharmaceutical companies to take over and charge up the wazoo for health costs and everything. And, you know,
plant-based.
It's huge. It's a huge controlled situation.
Yeah, you know, you've got, and I always like to look at this, you got Christians who are promoting all sorts of stuff, but they eat like crap. They don't realize that your temple, you know, the temple is not the one you go to church. The temple is the one you carry around your body. And it's very important to take care of your health. I mean, to me, it's like, if you don't have health, you have nothing. And how do you provide health is you are what you eat. You put the right kind of foods into your body, and that is the way it goes. Anyway, today's aspiration or inspiration or affirmation, whatever you want to call it, is everything that is happening now is for my ultimate good. There's no such thing as bad. Even the bad things sometimes turn out to be a beautiful thing because yes, you sure did, because you grow as a spiritual being, and that is why we're here. We are here. We are spirits having a human experience, and we're here to grow and learn. Guys, stay tuned. Friday, we have a guest, Sister Paula Nielsen.
Oh, nice.
She transitioned around 60 years ago.
Yeah.
Something near that nature, and that's her, something like that. So she'll have a lot of interesting things to talk about. So stay tuned.
Lots of stories, you know, I'm sure that she has of experiences that she can pass on to those of us who are in this now.
Yeah, and the changes. I'm sure she didn't take any Spiro back in the day.
We'd love to ask her about that.
Yes, we definitely will. Well, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. And remember, actually, we're going to have a change of time. We're looking at probably doing a 9:30 p.m. Mountain Time, which will be 11:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I think more people... Late night, more people will be listening, and especially the crowd that we're trying to draw in, the open-minded, spiritual, conspiracy-seeking individuals and all that stuff. And so, yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about it, and we'll let you all know. But meanwhile, remember that if you can't live your truth,
then it's just not worth living.
Good night, folks. Have a good one. See you on Friday. Goodbye.